This is Party Chat. If you're a $5 supporter, you can unlock the podcast version of this show each and every week. And if you're at the MinMax Council tier, you can literally jump in this batch of people. They're just people like you. And they just jump in and podcast with us about whatever they want. Leafeon, what would you like to podcast about?
Hello.
Hello. La, la, la.
I would like to talk about, I don't know if you want to do that now. You said you wanted to do it later, but
Ooh.
I love E.T. It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. It's just a very big nostalgic movie for me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know what you thought of it.
Absolutely. Bob, do you want to talk about E.T.?
I'm always down for talking about E.T.
Okay, throw your hand in the air if anybody else wants to talk about E.T. So thank you all for being here and, being on board for a silly thing like talking about E.T. in the year 2022. But 40th anniversary, everybody. So E.T. Hello, Starkiller. Welcome.
Hey.
So E.T. is a movie that I saw the beginning of when I was like 4 or 5 and scared the hell out of me. Absolute deep terror. And then it just became...
Deservedly so.
Look, we'll get into it, but I stand by being scared of that in a big bad way. But
what specifically?
Dude, okay. So I refused to watch it my entire life because I'm like, no, it's genuinely horrifying. And it got to a point maybe when I was like 15, I probably could have handled it, but I just became stubborn and be like, no, actually it still freaks me out too much. I refuse to watch it. I refuse to watch it. And like it became a thing with friends and family, they'd buy me an E.T. sweater or an E.T. glass, stuff like that, just like trying to scare me. I remember for like my, when I graduated high school, I got I think an E.T. poster, that they like put up on the wall. It's like, nope, like genuinely it would like make my heart skip a beat if I saw E.T. because it was just really scary, right? So then last week, my parents wanted to come visit and we wanted them to come visit us in the Twin Cities here. And every week, I talked about it on the MinMax Show podcast, but every week we like watch a movie outside on a projector. We have like our weekly movie night. And I was like, my parents are getting older. This is going to be the best opportunity to like finally rip off this Band-Aid. Like my parents are going to be in town. Let's just get my parents over here, get a bunch of friends together, have some beers and watch E.T. on a big projector outside. And I thought I was going to be the bold one for having never seen it, but there were like 4 or 5 other people there that also had never seen all of E.T.
Wow.
And so it's weird. And I saw, John Carson on Twitter was like, how is it possible that you have never seen E.T.? Because it seems very up my alley because I'm a big Spielberg head. But it turns out it's his fault for making the beginning of that movie so freaking scary. Because watching it again, like I stand by being scared. Even like the opening credits are disturbing and spooky, and then the opening sequence of them just like collecting stuff in the woods. The opening 15 minutes of that movie, I think hold up as genuinely scary. Am I insane?
No. I don't think you're insane.
He wants it to be scary. Like that is kind of the fun. Is like, oh, what if it starts out this intimidating otherworldly figure that then turns out to be your best friend? Like look at just the tone of the opening, or just like when he finds him in the cornfield, that reveal where they're screaming at each other and E.T. makes the sound of 1,000 Satans, like, it's just so disturbing on 1,000 different levels.
I always read that as just more like mysterious than scary, but I suppose...
Yes. Actually, I had a thought while watching this movie recently about like distinguishing between mysterious and ominous as like the specific words. And like, I felt like that was a very big recurring thing throughout the movie. Is like there are ominous things and there are mysterious things, and then you always get the answer of what you see in the end.
Yeah, I guess it kind of slowly builds towards getting more and more mysterious. It's like where does that land on your spectrum, for example, of like a baseball being thrown back out of the shed? Is that ominous or mysterious?
Well, that's ominous.
That's ominous. That's right. So this movie rocked my world, believe it or not. I absolutely loved it, and it's so interesting to see like what hit the cultural osmosis and just kind of general movie film lexicon, like which scenes really pop out. Like obviously I've seen them flying the bikes. I've heard the score 1,000 times. Like you know the big beats. I know that he gets sick. I know that he doesn't die. I know that he goes away in the end, all that fun stuff. Spoilers for E.T. Yeah, sorry. Heads up, everybody.
45-year-old movie.
But did the cops have guns or not at the end?
I think they did.
Yeah, it was uncut. Yeah, I saw the same version you did in IMAX. It was the full original version.
Not the walkie-talkie cut?
Yeah, no. So I was just renting it on YouTube and just like watching it outside, So I was curious to see which version it would be.
Oh.
But, I think they had walkie-talkies. I'm sorry, they had guns.
Yeah, I think that walkie-talkie version is quite. I think it was maybe just the DVD version now. They did go back on that one.
Okay, interesting. But yeah, so many things would kind of like, permeate through culture. But the part that I didn't really lock in on was just how amazing those little moments would be. Like, of all the clips of E.T. that make the rounds on best of reels and all that stuff, no one's ever just showing a little moment of just this amazing line read from a kid, right? Just like it's the child acting that I knew it was going to be great, but it really beat me over the head. Like it might be the greatest, I think it's unquestionably the greatest child performances in any film ever, right? Is there any contender?
Yeah.
There's nothing else that can get near how good
I
all
really
these
like
kids are.
Super 8. That's another Spielberg produced movie, J.J. Abrams directed.
Right.
That I'm a big fan of Super 8. A lot of, it's not a huge, doesn't have a huge following, but I always loved how well acted the children were in that.
Yeah, but just like those weird little moments that feel so honest, like Drew Barrymore just at a certain point, she's like, I don't like his feet. And it's like, oh, that's such a weird thing to say, but that sounds about right. Also, speaking of which, E.T.'s design is truly hideous, right? Like,
Yeah.
it just looks like a testicle sack. He's just so gross looking, but I love that it is so different, like especially after coming off of Close Encounters, where the aliens are a little more classic by the end. They look more like the classic Greys. And so I guess they had to do something different, but just the approach of making it, as they framed it, they wanted like big sympathetic eyes. Spielberg sent pictures of like Albert Einstein as an example of just like good sympathetic eyes. But then beyond that, just like his gross lower half of the body and like his skin sagging over his feet is such a weird design. Rich McLaughlin, are you an E.T. fan?
I am. I was going to say Henry Thomas. He was the kid that,
Yes.
In the movie, his audition for the film is on YouTube, and I would recommend it. It's pretty impressive.
Really? Okay, I definitely have to check that out. His scene, this is an example of something that wouldn't make like the best of, but it's just this amazing scene when he's finally over the hurdle of being scared of E.T., just like all of us collectively are now. And he's just so excited to explain things in his room to E.T., and he's just looking at everything on the drawer and walking through all of it and explaining it to E.T. like, okay, this is the fish and he eats fish food, but then the shark eats the fish, but then this is Greedo and then this is Boba Fett. Like, I had no idea there was so much Star Wars in this movie. Like, genuinely, that completely missed me. Like that, and then like the Yoda walking down the street and stuff. I had no idea that this stuff was in this movie. So that was a real delightful thing for something that everybody else understands, obviously, and they've seen this movie 1,000 times. But I was struck by that. But just that scene where he's walking through like, okay, and then this is a peanut, but you can't eat this peanut, but then the money goes in the peanut because it's kind of like a bank. Like, it is the funniest idea for a kid to explain Earth to this alien in just the most confusing, rapid fire way. Like, there is not a worse way to explain civilization to an alien than just some kid rapid firing through everything on his drawer. It is the funniest frickin' thing. Starkiller, do you have a favorite scene in E.T.?
I'll admit, it has been a while since I've seen it. I was actually going to echo it's really funny. You have almost the exact same story experience with E.T. as my sister. I think she's probably about the same age as you. I don't know how old you are, but it was this exact same thing. She like watched it way too young. My parents showed it to her, and she's still not a fan of E.T. And my parents do the exact same thing where they try to harass her with E.T. merchandise. Yep. And we're just like, I whatever it is about E.T. is, it's kind of funny that it's asked to be harangued about.
I think it's because it's just like such a huge movie that everybody had it. Everybody had the VHS. I mean, it was the highest gross movie for so long. So everybody bought it, and everyone's like, well, it's a good family movie. I guess we'll let our kids watch it. And then when that opening is that tense and scary, I think it impacts a lot of kids. I mean, maybe some kids are superheroes and they aren't impacted in a way. I was talking to Dan Reichert about it. He's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing scary about E.T. Like, go back and look at that opening, dude. Like, it is a disturbing, ominous, maybe is a better term.
I mean, I was going to say that I originally loved E.T. when I was like an infant because I had a bunch of audiobook very shortened versions for toddlers that my parents would play for me to go to sleep. Like, I had Lion King and like Finding Nemo and E.T. So I have some lines ingrained and sounds from E.T. ingrained in my brain because I've heard them so much when I was an infant. But I loved it ever since I was, really young.
Yeah. Do you remember any lines in particular? Is it just all of the ET phone home, the biggies?
No, actually, like there's like some random lines from the first scene where they're all at the dinner table.
Penis
it's like
breath?
it was real, I swear. I saw it. Like things like that. Like weird little intermediate lines. But
yeah. There's a making of on YouTube that you can check out. I think it's like 40 minutes. It must have been with some DVD bundle, but it is stunning how much behind the scenes footage there is. And this is 1982, and Spielberg still, I guess, was very keen on just letting the cameras roll behind the scenes. So there's a lot of just great footage of actually seeing Spielberg direct the film, work with the kids. There's early stuff like he's talking to Elliot about the flashlight and going out there, and he's like, okay, so you're kind of like Lancelot, and then this is like your sword. Like he just has such a good way of like framing what's happening in the movie for kids, because I think Spielberg is just a big kid at heart, and he totally gets where these kids are coming from and like what would be fun for them. And there's interesting stuff too, where I guess I didn't notice it too much, but I think it holds up, of just like so much of the movie is shot from the vantage point of a kid. Like the biggest example is just the height overall, and the fact that our dear friend Keys, like that older guy, we always just see the keys on his hip, but like so many shots are just from a slightly lower angle to replicate what it was like being a kid. And I was listening to the Rewatchables, the podcast over there on the Ringer Network, and they brought up the good example of like how impossibly big Elliot's closet is, where he hides ET. Like, why does a kid have a closet that big? And it's like, oh, maybe it's like that weird metaphorical thing of like from a kid's vantage point, which is what the movie's coming from. The closet seemed huge, so let's just film it as if it was gigantic, but practically it's not actually that big.
No, it's that big.
It turns out it's just, maybe Elliot, they just had a weirdly weird room where the closet was half the size of the room itself.
Well, there's like a scene later on where Michael is, I don't know, he's like sad and he goes into the closet because he thinks that E.T.'s dying. And there's like a little cubby in there, like a spot.
No, I know,
to, like hang out.
I know
and
the way
read
they
books.
shot it. It is like that big of a room, but like, why is the closet that big? And I think the idea that at least they posited, which I think is interesting, is that if it's coming from a kid's perspective, you would incorporate that into the layout even of the set, which is a weird idea. But that making of, there's so much behind the scenes footage. I feel like it's ripe for a Get Back style documentary like the Beatles, just like, just give me all of that footage that you have of Spielberg directing E.T. It'll probably never see the light of day, but like, wouldn't you watch a 3-hour movie that's just Spielberg working with those kids?
Well, I think that the special edition DVDs and things like that had a lot of, special features and behind the scenes and things like that. But I also remember that Drew Barrymore was really... her mental health was really affected by that, because she was so ingrained in acting in Hollywood from such a young age, because her family also is, all Hollywood royalty back to like the 1800s.
Right.
Not actually, but
No, I hear you. She, it's interesting. I saw an interview with her, I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel not too long ago, where she was talking about watching E.T. with her kids. And then she said that like she gets dinner with Spielberg, and Spielberg went out to dinner with her and her kids not too long ago. And
he's her godfather.
Yeah, and the kids are the same age that Drew Barrymore was in E.T. And so Spielberg was having them do like line readings from E.T. of like alligator in the sewers and all that stuff. And I guess Spielberg was very impressed by her kids' acting ability, even. So it's so sweet, but also disturbing if you're scared of actors like I am. The idea to like rope these kids in. Here we go.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say there's a Norm Macdonald interview. Because he had Norm Macdonald had a show. Has a show on Netflix, and she talked about how like some things were just very, like thinking about early stuff like that was just kind of traumatizing. The way that she looks back on it now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how she would feel about having all of those behind the scenes things come out. I guess it would be really like a Beatles situation. But,
right. Yeah, I'm curious to see. Brian Vore, are you here?
Yes, hello.
Hello, welcome, Brian Vore.
Hey.
Yeah, it's not quite a Star Wars discussion, but I assume you're a big fan of E.T.?
Yeah, it's been quite a while since I've seen it. I went to see that weird walkie-talkie version re-release in theaters.
Oh, God.
On a date, and it, that that didn't end up going anywhere. So I've just blamed ET for that.
Yeah, that's smart.
Since then.
That's smart. You didn't get the romantic kiss like they do in the, I don't know, classroom where they're dissecting frogs. By the way, Brian, did you know this weird bit of trivia that it's on YouTube? You can find the scene, but apparently Harrison Ford was originally the principal in E.T.
What?
Yeah, and there's a deleted scene where it's like Elliot going to the principal's office after that whole frog thing, and the principal is yelling at him, and he's like, hey, you gotta stay off the pot, and all this stuff. And it's shot like in a really obnoxious way of like trying to hide the principal's face. In almost like an Austin Powers-esque way of like hiding the nudity. But it's Harrison Ford is a whole idiot. And then like
a Muppet Baby style?
Yes, basically. And then like Elliot's chair starts floating around the room and stuff because E.T.'s manipulating it. It's just this weird scene, but it would have been really distracting to have Harrison Ford in E.T. But apparently the screenwriter was dating or married to Harrison Ford at the time. So that was like an even bigger connection between Spielberg and Harrison Ford. But this is, coming right off of Raiders. So it's weird that Spielberg even tried shoving him into this thing.
In terms of like tangential ET stuff, there is a mini short sequel, probably uncanon, because it was like a commercial for like Xfinity cable. But if you, which it instantly like grosses it out, but like if you have nostalgia for E.T., it's like a little 5-minute thing, and it's like the same actor who played Elliot grown up, and it's E.T. like visiting him and his kids for Christmas, and it's like it's oddly heartwarming until like the last 30 seconds where they're like, let's just watch Xfinity together, E.T. And it's like, this sucks.
Actually, it is the sequel. You know, there's like a sequel story.
Wait, there's
the ride at Universal.
Oh, and that's what it is? It's like E.T. comes
very
back?
quickly. What was that?
E.T. like comes back? That's the idea?
Yeah, I mean, they very quickly go through the events of the first movie, and it keeps going, and it shows like him coming back, and like there's a girl E.T., you know, there's like a girlfriend for him to have.
Yeah,
they show all these other alien types. It's wild. If you have the chance, just like, you know, watch the E.T. ride on YouTube.
Oh, I definitely should.
At Universal, because it's weird.
I assume it's like in that tone.
It's
of
really
like,
strange, like how stories continue and like how much of a business the rides can be. I just read a story today. Bryce Dallas Howard was like apparently vastly underpaid compared to Chris Pratt for Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
they locked in that trilogy deal, and then apparently when she brought this up to him, he's like, "Don't worry, I got this." Like, so he like kind of helped out with all the further negotiating outside of the core trilogy of movies. So apparently she's made way more money from being in like the rides and things than the actual appearing in the movies.
That's really bizarre. I'm trying to remember if she was in the Evolution games. I think she probably was. Maybe that was a factor too.
I think she's in the second one, but not the first.
Rides, yeah.
Okay, weird. So I wonder if the ride, does it tap into like that, the weird stuff? I need to go back and rewatch just that opening, because when you see inside of E.T.'s ship and it's like, what is this like mushroom thing with a face? Like, what are they collecting? And it's just kind of leading into that freaky stuff. Yeah,
they go to his planet. They just fully explore all the weird alien stuff. And it was like co-direct, like the ride. Steven Spielberg had a big hand in directing the ride.
Weird.
So it's pretty weird.
I gotta say, it is one of the smartest moves in cinema history to just have that connection between Elliot and E.T. be like not just a friendship, but a mental link. It is, think of like
an emotional one.
Yeah, just the screenwriting power and the dramatic power of just saying, he just forms bonds with people. There's no extra special effects you really have to do, but it just makes everything so much more weighted that like if E.T. is going to start to get sick, then Elliot is going to start to get sick. And it's such a simple idea to just say, they're connected, and bada bing, bada boom, and now you feel everything more because they feel everything more. It's diabolically genius.
And it's so emotionally heavy at the end too, when all that stuff is coming on, especially if you're a kid and you're seeing this movie. I remember bawling my eyes out every time I would see, white dying E.T.
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah. And especially
when Elliot's screaming like, you're killing him, like it's such a good performance.
Yeah.
God.
And he does like the whole speech while leaning on the window of like the casket and he's crying. It's fantastic. But when I went to go see it in IMAX this weekend, because they re-released it for the 40th, which was incredible to hear like John Williams' score in the IMAX sound system. That was really the selling point for me. That was incredible. But it was all mostly a bunch of parents with their very young children, probably around 10 or younger, seeing it for the first time. And for like the first 2/3 of the movie, it's all, you know, a lot of the little kids I could hear talking and asking their parents like, oh, where's he going? You know, like little kid questions from seeing a movie. But in the entire last act of the movie, the entire last third, everyone is bawling.
Oh my God.
The kids and the parents, you know, just like, I just hear sniffling everywhere. It was hysterical.
What were the reactions in the backyard, Hanson?
Tomatoes thrown at the screen. No, it was interesting actually. Like, I loved it. There were some people, I don't know, like friends of my wife's, like her first reaction, I'm not going to call her out, but the first reaction when it stopped was she's like, whoa, talk about plot holes. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, that's the weirdest reaction that's E.T. It's something that came up, and I feel like it's another thing that hadn't really popped through the cultural osmosis in a big way, but like the idea of who's known as Keys, like that guy and his role in the movie is maybe the most confusing thing after. And that was definitely something that stuck out to me, is like, as it was building up, I was like, oh no, are they waiting to reveal that this government agent is Elliot's dad? Because there's weird stuff of like, he's camped outside listening to them all talk in the house. And there's constant references of, you know, Elliot's dad being in Mexico with his new girlfriend and all that stuff. And I was like, God, if the twist is the government agent is his dad, that has really never broken through. I have never heard that. And I think in a modern movie, maybe they would try and tie that bow. But instead, it's just building up to, no, there's just some other guy who's a government agent guy who's going to be a little bit more sympathetic. And then he'll also like put his hand on the mom at the end. And it seems like they're trying to set up that like they're going to go on a date or whatever the hell. But that was, I think, the biggest mystery is, you know, somebody even watching it in the backyard, Brian, afterwards was like, oh, so that guy was his dad, right? And it's like, no, it just kind of was building up to that. And the part that confused me is that older guy, Peter Coyote, I think is the actor's name. But how he had some line when he was talking to Elliot when E.T. was sick, where he said like, it's something along the lines of like, boy, I was right there with you when I was 10. I really wanted to see E.T. as well, but I'm glad that he showed himself to you first. Something, paraphrasing, but it was something like that. So then I was really confused about like, oh, is he just like a kid like Spielberg who was really into aliens when he was young? I think that's what's going on there.
Well, I always took it as, you know, a big theme in the movie is, like, I guess, through the eyes of children, right? You know, only kids can see him and things like that. Yeah. And the only faces that you see and the eyes that you see are, you know, basically that huge wall between an adult and a child. And there's a big point where he's like one of the first faces that you see that's an adult. Right. And he explains like, I was just like you. I was a kid. This is why I am where I am. Like, I always figured it was just he wanted to become a scientist and do what he does because he always kept that feeling of wanting to see an alien like Elliot has. Okay. So it was like that connection, that emotional connection that he formed with Elliot, of, you know, that feeling of being a kid and wanting to see aliens. Okay, but it wasn't as literal as like he saw the UFO and just never saw E.T. or something. That was the part that it was a little bit confusing to me on the first viewing. But I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it's really that important. Right. It's more so just, yeah, he lost touch with his inner self. It's very Peter Pan stuff, you know, like which they read Peter Pan in the film, which is funny then because Spielberg goes on to direct Hook. Mm-hmm. But yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Ben, my big question to you is, did anyone bring Reese's Pieces to the showing?
Brian, my mom made a Reese's Pieces dessert. Oh. Isn't that good? Brilliant. Good mother. Good mother confirmed. On brand. Very on brand. Bob, what do you want to say?
I just really like Reese's Pieces. Now that's all I can think of.
Yeah. About it.
No, I haven't seen the movie in a while either, but I seem to again, maybe I'm misremembering it and just kind of what I recall about Keys.
Yeah.
But like, doesn't he mention something about seeing a UFO, or did I just make that up in my head?
I think he just says that he was obsessed with them. It's something like, I was obsessed with aliens at your age as well. Something like that. Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, I always saw it as like, he had that spark of belief, kind of like he was going down the same road Elliot is, but he just never had that one moment of actually meeting an alien. So it's like, hey kid, if you don't follow this good path, you might turn out like me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
With keys.
Heaven forbid you have keys, and keys represent responsibilities. I gotta say, that death from E.T., like, longest held fake out death in cinema history. Like, up until this point, I know the chronology doesn't work out, but for movies that I watched in this sequence, like, in my mind, it was always like The Abyss had the longest gap of like a character you thought was dead, turns out, no, they are not dead. But like, E.T.
in a single movie, you mean?
In a single movie, right. But like, E.T. is down and out and dead and mourned. And then...
Isn't he like put on ice and everything too?
Yes.
Yeah, he's called out in a casket.
Yes.
Often, yeah.
But then just the ship comes back and the plant lights up. And that's another genius idea of like, oh yeah, just plant is going to be the measurement of E.T.'s health. And then his chest will start glowing and we're good to go. And then Elliot has to pretend that he's crying on top of the casket as all the scientists, just let Elliot hang out with this rare specimen. Like, oh, we assume this kid's not going to ruin his scientific achievement. All right, moving on. Which seems like a bold move on their part. But can anybody else think of, I guess without too many spoilers for any recent-ish movies, but any other death that can compare with just like how long they let you sit in the death of E.T.? It's crazy.
Well, I was going to say Gandalf, but
that's interesting.
Movies.
That is a good one. But yeah, the multiple movies thing, I think that breaks it up a little bit.
Yeah. Fast and the Furious, who's that, Han?
Okay.
That was like 7 movies or something. But, again, that's doesn't really count.
Yeah, but I think they also had the flower revive when Han came back, right?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, Vin Diesel was crying on the coffin. Yeah.
You're killing him. You're killing the franchise, Tokyo Drift. Also, I loved, I thought it was so smart when they're talking about, when they're parting and then E.T. is just like touching his lips and saying, ouch, as a way to like express his heartbreak about leaving Elliot. It's like, oh, that's such a good twisted way to see that from a newcomer's perspective, but genius, just genius.
I'll be right here.
That's right.
He points at his heart.
That's right. So how does it work? Does anybody have a theory for E.T. being in Star Wars canon because he's in the Senate, but then also there's the toys and stuff in this world? So just
I think it just takes place in a galaxy far, far away. Like, he's from a galaxy far, far away.
E.T. is. So it's like he's the descendant of that species. So then on Earth, we just happen to guess correctly and make those Star Wars movies and assume that E.T. was in it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think E.T. visited George Lucas before he stopped at Elliot's house and gave him a big saga to write down.
That's good. In that making of, Spielberg is pretty explicit because Spielberg's a big dork, believe it or not. And like, by the way, there's this fun moment where Spielberg when they were filming on Halloween, Spielberg like dressed up as like an old lady and wore like high heels around the set. So there's a bunch of footage in this making of this is Spielberg in drag, which is fun. And he's like, I might wear this around all the time. This is great. But he's talking about how, E.T. is clearly from the Alpha Centauri system. But then he talks about how E.T. recognized Yoda. He's like, we wanted to have Yoda in it. I didn't even ask for George Lucas's permission. And then, like, I guess at the big preview event for the film, Spielberg made sure to sit next to Lucas. And then I guess when Yoda popped up on the screen, all that Lucas did was he gave Spielberg a little nudge with his shoulder. And that was it. And Spielberg's like, so I knew I had his approval because he gave me the nudge. It's like, just the most subtle move ever.
That's great.
E.T., everybody. Any other final thoughts on the one and the only E.T.?
Where does it rank on your Spielberg list?
Ooh. I don't know if I've ever tried to put a list together. That's tough.
In general.
Well, this is for me personally. Oh, goddamn. I'd go Jurassic Park, number 1. I'd go Last Crusade below that. I'd go Jaws below that. I might put Close Encounters below that. And maybe E.T. somewhere in that vicinity below that. Raiders probably, then E.T. But I mean, I've seen it once, you know, it's tough to ballpark. BFG somewhere in the middle there, obviously. I don't know, I'm trying to think, there's probably some other huge Spielberg movies that I'm forgetting. What am I missing, Brian?
1941.
Saving Private Ryan. I'd put Saving Private Ryan maybe above Raiders even. I think I might. All right, that's it for this episode of Party Chat. Thank you so much for watching or listening. You can always unlock the podcast version of this discussion each and every week, and more than double the amount of podcasts you get from MinMax each and every week in the bonus podcast feed right in your favorite app by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon. We appreciate it. This content exists because of folks like you going out of your way. So thank you to all MinMax Council supporters as well who jumped up and talked about whatever they want to talk about. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you for Trivia Tower tonight. We need your help defeating those lovable lads over there at Kind of Funny. So we appreciate it. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Goodbye. E.T. home from... This was a clip from Party Chat, our Patreon exclusive podcast that airs every single Monday. The podcast features cohorts and friends of the show, contributors, talking directly to the MinMax community. So if you're looking for even more podcasts from MinMax, this is the place to go. Just head to patreon.com/MinMax with 2 N's, support us at the $5 tier, and you can listen to Party Chat every single week. Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate it.